So thank you, Sabine, for your opening words. Thank you, a special word of thankfulness to Natalia from Ukraine. It causes a little bit of mixed feelings, as Sabine has already stated, to start with encouragement, with the background and the change in the strange times in which we are living. Nevertheless, maybe we can have some courage out of my lecture and out of our discussions, and maybe that will contribute a little bit, or maybe a little bit, or I hope much more, of course, to solve the problem, but we are all restricted in our options, isn't it? So in this lecture, and this is not really a lecture, but in this presentation, I have three parts of encouragement. And after the second part, we will start a discussion in small groups. Then we come back, and then we will start with the third part, and also that will end with a small group discussion. So a little bit different format than we used in previous sessions. Encouragement is a fundamental topic of Adlerian psychology. And the first question is, why is that? So in Adlerian psychology, we view a human being as related to other human beings. Somehow, each person is related to others. And this is not something extra. It's given. It's a fact of life. You can't discuss it. It's a given fact. Therefore, Adlerian psychology may be considered as a social psychology. Some people even talk about a community psychology. Human beings, have a need to belong, have a need to feel connected. That's different from a wish to belong. You don't have to wish it, it's a need you can't do without. In his first writings, in the beginning of the previous century, Adler already stressed this social component of human beings by talking about the need for tenderness, das Zärtlichkeitsbedürfnis in German. Infants and toddlers need a valued relationship to grow and to develop. And the need for tenderness may be considered as the basis for what later was called social feeling, social interest, or the original word Gemeinschaftsgefühl. Social feeling or social interest can idealistically be seen as belongingness, solidarity, togetherness. Second, it's an interest for the others and an interest in the others. Third, it's also an interest for challenges and problems. And last is the feeling of being part of a bigger whole. Social feeling is focused on humanity, on human dignity, and on its development. It means acting or behaving in a way that for yourself and the other is the most loving and contributes to the welfare of the whole. And I saw today on the social media from Marina a quote from Adler, which I'd like to share with you. The psychologist, it's a quote from Adler, the psychologist must work against nationalism when it is so poorly understood that it harms humankind as a whole, against wars or conquest, revenge and prestige. And I think it's not only a task of the psychologist, it's a task of all humans to develop nationalism in a right way and not in a wrong way, as we see now in these days. Adler and Drycourt see activating and developing social feeling as the aim, the goal of encouragement. The focus of encouragement is to contribute in developing social interest. And that may lead to a healthy, constructive, cooperative behavior and a feeling of belonging. So it's not only behavior, it's also a feeling. These two components belong to social interest or to social feeling. And the ability to develop social interest is inborn. You may compare it with the inborn capacity of learning to speak. And we all know how much energy parents are spending on developing the baby to speak the first words. They do it for months. Developing social interest requires the same energy and maybe a lifelong, not only for months. So for short, encouragement is important because it has a close connection to a central starting point of individual psychology, namely social feeling or social interest. Social interest is an innate ability of human beings which needs to be developed by others. Parents and teachers have an important role. So that's the answer in short to the question, why it's a fundamental of Adlerian psychology. The second question now is, what is it, encouragement? And I can only do it in a few words in this cafe. A courageous person looks at situations in relation to possible actions and solutions, rather than thinking in risks and threats. A courageous person reflects also on the consequences of certain actions, and this distinguishes courage from recklessness. A courageous person trusts his ability to handle a situation, and being not able to do something does not lead to lose his self-esteem. It does not make him a worthless person. Making mistakes are not experienced as personal failures or crimes. So a courageous person has the courage to be imperfect. Courage is a belief in yourself and a belief in your ability to cope in situations with a focus to serve the whole, the common good. I used on purpose the word belief. Encouragement is first of all a belief, a conviction, and not just a technique or a trick. A discouraged educator or leader can't encourage any child, another child or adult. Encouragement is a belief and an act. You do something. I quote Rijkus from Social Equality. We can't help our children or anyone else to believe in themselves when we don't have faith in them. To encourage is not that simple. It's not only saying you are a good boy or a good girl or you did a good job. It's a complex process, because what could be encouraging for one might not fit for another. In fact, the receiver of your encouragement is the one who decides whether something has been encouraging to him or her or not. And whether something is encouraging is determined by the recipient. The reaction will give you that information. So these are the two parts of the beginning of this presentation, and I have two questions for the small groups. The first question is, can you exchange in your small group examples in which you felt encouraged? And then two sub-questions, what was your feeling? Can you remember that? And what did the others say or do that you got an encouraging feeling? Part of the presentation is a question, what is not encouraging? So we answered the question, why it's fundamental for Adlerian psychology. We paid attention to what is an encouraging attitude. And now we will answer the question, what is it not? We all have learned to become discouraging. There is in our society often a red pencil mentality. We are focused on mistakes. And mistakes are in the center of the learning process, at least as what we think. So we can also learn to become an encourager. And we have in our culture, I think, and in our relationships and society, many discouraging interactions. And they are characterized by that they don't develop to cooperation and they don't contribute to a feeling of connectedness. A main feature of discouragement is that a person has no faith in his abilities and does not see opportunities. Sometimes he or she keeps trying, but with no success, and thus, in desperation, stops trying. Here we often see the forced goal of misbehavior, assumed inability. Leave me alone, because I can't, as I have shown you many times. such a discouraged person thinks about himself that he can't do a certain thing. And that is in itself not so bad. But if many negative reactions and or exclusion are connected with it, such a person loses his self-esteem. Laying continued emphasis on being not able to do something does not require much imagination that he or she will give up or rebel against those who rub this constantly. The first step to become an encourager is to stop discouraging behavior. And I will tell you a short story, a case of Peter. And my questions for the second round are about this case. It is about Peter's essay on his pet. Peter is 10 years old. He can reasonably keep up with all courses in school, but he finds spelling particularly difficult. When he has to write a story, there are quite a number of spelling errors. Peter loves animals, and at home he has a rabbit. At school, the pupils had to write a story about animals. Peter naturally chose to make a story of his rabbit. He talked about the food, how he took care of him, the diseases about a rabbit, etc., etc. And he was excited about this essay because the subject appealed to him. And he also created a pretty drawing of the rabbit in his cage and colored it nicely. The story of Peter was not very long, and there were many erasures and corrections in it. It's not easy for Peter to write the words right in the first time. And these improvements and corrections don't contribute to a nice look of the story. And besides that, the spelling mistakes are frequently present. I will give you now a few possible reactions when an adult, that could be a teacher, a parent, or a grandparent, sees that story. And maybe you will recognize them, or you heard all these reactions in your surroundings. The first one. Well, Peter, that does not look so good. What will become of you? I don't know, but this is for sure not okay. Second, this is a mess. I don't want to see such work again. If you have nothing better to bring home, you better leave it at school, so it does not annoy me anymore. Third, I've read your story and there are very, very many errors. That can't continue. Tonight, after dinner, you will have to rewrite it neatly. Another one. The only thing I like about this story is the drawing. But you have to know, the story, it is what counts, and that was not well done. We need to write together every day for at least 15 minutes to do something about your spelling. Another one. I can imagine that a teacher has put an insufficient mark below it, but put it away, and soon I will no longer look at it. Peter, that you come home with such a work. Your sister has never in all classes produced such work. And this is not for the first time this year. Have a look at your writings of your sister, then you will know how things should be done. Maybe some of these comments are familiar to you, or you even heard them when you were a child, or you heard them around you in your family. So I have a few questions for the second round. Maybe the first question is, do you recognize these kind of reactions? And if you recognize them, what can be the result of such a reaction of an adult? And how would the children and the parents or the teacher feel in such a reaction? And maybe the most challenging question, what could be an encouraging reaction to Peter's essay when you were a parent or a grandfather or a teacher?